Welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast, an interview series where I talk to some of today's most influential musicians, bands, artists, entrepreneurs, and basically anyone who's killing it in the music industry. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Matt Halpern. This man does not need an introduction. Not only is he a well-known drummer and plays for Periphery, he is also a well-known entrepreneur who has his hands in so many pies that I just can't keep track. I'm excited that I got a chance to speak with him about his entrepreneurial lifestyle and how he manages to multitask so well, and I'm excited to share all this information with all of you guys. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, what's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here again. And today I'm very excited because I have someone that I've been looking forward to having on the show for a very long time. And I'm pretty sure that you guys who are, following my accounts or who listen or tune into this podcast know who this person is. Matt Halpern, the one, the only Matt Halpern, the fantastic drummer. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate you having me on, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm the one who's super appreciative, man, because you are a phenomenal drummer, to say the least. You're a phenomenal drummer, but you're just an entrepreneur all around. You do so many cool things that I myself, as a musician and / entrepreneur, I look up to some of the things that you do. And frankly, I'm just, I'm blown away that I get a chance to even speak to you today. So I don't want to bore anyone with some of my stories or anything that I have to say. I definitely want to hear more from you, Matt. So let's just jump into it, Matt. I mean, why don't you just catch me up a little bit, maybe some stuff of what you've been up to lately and maybe like how you got started with music, and we'll just go from there.
Sure. Well, thank you for the kind words. First off, I really appreciate it, man. And props on the podcast. This is great. I'm glad we could finally get it scheduled.
Yeah.
But things are a little busy right now, but all good stuff. So on the music front, I've been working on some ideas on the drums for Periphery's new record, which we start writing for late next week.
Really?
So I don't know when the podcast comes out, but yeah, in the week of the 20th of March, we're going to start writing our new record and see where that takes us. But in preparation, we've all kind of been doing our parts separately to come up with ideas. And I've just been on the drum set kind of hashing out different ideas I've had, different concepts, and sending it via video to all the guys to either give their thumbs up or thumbs down on. And so far the reception has been really good. So I'm excited, to be diving into a new record with ideas of my own that they can build off of. And that's something kind of new that we've introduced into the writing process as of late. So that's really cool on the music front. As far as everything else, I've been really busy with three other businesses of mine. That sounds hilarious to say.
Jesus, man, you're busy.
Yeah. I'm definitely keeping myself occupied. So I have a few projects that I'm working on right now. The first, which I'm really excited about, is Get Good Drums. So for those who don't know, Get Good Drums is a music software company, and we specialize in drum samples initially, but we're going to be putting some other things out in the coming months that will be more than drum samples, but we'll talk about that another time. But most recently, we've been finalizing and finally wrapping up a new drum sample library that we've put over a year of work into as a team, and it's finally about to come out. And I couldn't be more excited about that, because I think we really we hit a new level with our product, I think. And I think I'm hopeful that our current customers and new customers will really appreciate all the work that we've put into this new thing. So just gearing up for that launch has been a massive undertaking in and of itself, but we are nearing the finish line with that, of getting it out there to the world. And that's really exciting. So that's a big one. Also, I've been really involved with another new company that I formed with my very good friend, Finn McKenty. Finn is, for those that are familiar with Nail the Mix, which is like an education platform for producers. Finn is the head of marketing for Nail the Mix, and together we started working on a series of online courses that are geared toward artists and creatives in general, to teach these different people how to market themselves as creatives, how to get out of their potentially shitty, boring everyday jobs, and do what they love for a living and actually thrive at it. So the company we started is called the Punk Rock MBA, as in Master of Business.
Nice.
So it's the punkrockmba.com. And we started that company, and we've just now put out the pre-sale for a 3.5+ hour course that we released called Sell It Without Selling Out. And Finn and I put a good, I don't know how many hours into it, but we've just put a ton of work into basically organizing the class, writing the class, filming the class twice, and making sure that it was a good enough product to release and charge people for. And we think that there's a ton of value there for anybody who's interested in learning how to work for themselves, because both Finn and I have a lot of experience with that, and we want nothing more than to share that with the world.
Nice.
And then lastly, I've been doing a lot of sales as of late. Working on my sales technique for another company that I started with a programmer friend of mine, where we've been focusing on travel management apps, specifically, and this is going to sound hilarious, and I have never talked about this publicly before, for sports teams. So long story short,
that's crazy.
Yeah, long story short, I have a bunch of friends that play professional sports, and in one particular area of sports, they needed some more robust tools to manage their travel for the team and for the people on the team. And I talked to a buddy of mine who's a really talented programmer, and together we worked to whip up this really cool app that is strictly for the teams. It's never something that will be public. I don't even want to say the name of it, because it's not something that's available to just anybody. It's really like a business to business, B2B kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's been a lot of fun to develop, to work with these teams on, and to really be selling. I love the opportunity anytime I get a chance to pitch something. So I've been having lots of different Skype calls and screen share calls and pitch meetings with all these different sports teams to get them to use the app. And so far it's going really well. So that's kind of the long story short of what I've been doing as of late: music, education, software, and more software. That's kind of where I'm at.
Wow, man, you are an all-around entrepreneur. I mean, that's the definition of an entrepreneur, just someone who just manages to do all this bunch of projects and just really good things at the same time and be able to do them and execute them really well. And what I'm curious about is, obviously, I think all of us tuning in, we all understand that you're a very phenomenal musician, obviously, and there's a lot of things here that I'm very curious about. But the transition from being a musician to a full-blown entrepreneur, obviously, I'm going to say it this way, as a musician, as a freelance musician, I think to some degree you are an entrepreneur already, especially if you're trying to find work. But what you're doing, which, for example, the latest one, which you said is an app or a software development company, like, as a drummer myself, I don't know anything about app development. You know what I mean? But you have seamlessly made that transition pretty well. So what I'm curious about is, when did you start sort of exploring these other avenues and sort of starting to dive into maybe starting these businesses, if that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. I got into it when I had the idea to launch my own company years back called Band Happy, which people may or may not have heard of. But I had this idea to connect musicians and their fans through music education, because there was a big hole in the way that artists and fans were interacting with each other. It's always, and still is, very hard for musicians that are on tour and doing it professionally to make an actual living. And fans were always looking for a better way to connect with their favorite artists. So I said, hey, why not do it through education? And there was nobody really doing it in a big way at the time. And this is back in like 2009, 2008, when I had the initial idea. So I'm just this drummer who has this good idea, but didn't know what to do with it. And I just kind of hit the phones and hit the pavement and started figuring out what to do. I read books. I went through a lot of trial and error, but eventually I was able to actually raise enough money through grants and then also through angel investors to get enough of a budget together to build out this web platform. And then luckily, through my network via Periphery and Animals as Leaders and all my friends in music, I was able to have a potential market right at my disposal to tap into. So I built this crazy company not knowing anything about it, and I just learned a ton about launching a business, maintaining a business, seeing the ups and downs of a business and what it takes through that whole process. And that process really lasted a good 2-3 years before I then transitioned from Band Happy into what you mentioned before when we were talking is called the Entertainment Institute.
Yeah.
So I really like sharpened my, I guess, the tools through that process and learned a ton through that. And I just kind of got bit by the bug and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of people that might be listening and saying, oh man, like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's trying to, everybody knows entrepreneurs should focus on one thing and he's doing 5 things. How, bullshit. How the fuck's he going to do it? And you know what? They're right. But I'm really lucky to have good partners and different partners in everything that I'm doing. And that has been the biggest lesson for me in all of this is figure out how to connect people to make something awesome happen, or figure out how to surround yourself with people that do jobs that they're really good at that you suck at. I think my strength is being able to see the potential for an idea and kind of develop it and sell it and pitch it. But when it comes to the other parts, and there's a ton of other parts to any business. I mean, what I'm talking about is a very small portion of it. Yeah. To do everything else, you need other people. So in every business endeavor I've been a part of, I've had amazing partners and been able to build an amazing team. And I owe any kind of success to the whole big picture, rather than, just being this like, I'm definitely not a mastermind in any way. So, I mean, I think it's just a matter of having an idea, figuring out what you're good at, really doubling down on those skills, and then finding the right people to fill the holes where you need them. And if you can do that and work with people and learn how to communicate well, then you usually can execute upon your ideas if you stick with it and kind of, bear with it is the thing. It's because it's not an easy thing to do. It's a day-to-day kind of chomping at the bit, but it's a good grind. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question. I don't know if it does, but that's where I got my start. And then I just through the process learned my strengths and weaknesses, and I stay away from my weaknesses and I focus on my strengths, and then I put other people in a position to thrive, or luckily find other people to give them the opportunity or to start an opportunity with them where they can thrive as well. And as I say that, I'm thinking about my partners now in all my businesses, and like they're all smarter than me. They're all like way harder workers than I am, and they have amazing skills that I don't have. So I genuinely owe it all to them. That's what I have to say.
That's the absolute truth. No matter what kind of business anyone has, there's always a massive team that's behind it. And there's so many questions I have because I think you brought up so many good points. But one of them that stood out to me particularly is because when I speak to a lot of other younger musicians or just people that are interested in doing more than one thing. And actually, I'm going to do a side note here too, just to say, I honestly believe that you're right, that that is very true, that it's easier to focus on one thing than 5 different things at the same time, but you definitely hit it on the mark. Having a team that helps you and allowing yourself to sort of let go of that idea and make sure that other people come in and help you build it is definitely essential. So, but part of that statement that you said is understanding what you're good at. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult to figure out. And I'm putting myself in that category because I definitely had a harder time growing up understanding what specifically I wanted to do and, what I specifically was good at. And I think you're absolutely right when you said that you are good at sort of seeing the vision, seeing the potential of, what a project could be and essentially being able to, go after it in that aspect. So what I'm curious about, and maybe it's a little bit too much of a broad question, but how did you figure out that that's what you were good at? And did you always know that that was what you were sort of good at? Cause again, from what I understand, you started playing drums and, that was a great thing that you were doing. And that takes some sort of discipline to do as just, I understand that too by me being a drummer. But then at some point you have to learn, or you start to learn that you're also good at many other things. And I think understanding that you're good at being a visionary, it's something that takes a while. I'm not sure. I mean, I wasn't born and understood that right away. You know what I mean? And so I'm curious, like, sure, for you, how long did it take for you to understand that that's what you were good at and be able to separate yourself from what you weren't so that you can finally let go of those things that you weren't good at and let other people help you, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I've always had a pretty strong personality, and when I've wanted something bad enough, it's really hard to get in my way because I'll figure it out. I'll get through whoever's in front of me if I really believe in something.
Yeah.
I'm relentless and I'm persistent, and those are skills that or those are traits that I've always had, I should say. But I think it's a combination of two things. One, I've had some amazing mentors. My grandfather was a mentor. My mother is an amazing businesswoman and has been a great mentor for me. And she just basically always said to me, it's like, you can do anything you want to do. You just got to work hard and you can always figure it out. If other people can do it, you have to remember they're not super people. They're just like you. So you can do it too. So just understanding that anything is possible was a great first sort of motivator for me to get up and go from 0 to 1. But I think just the belief in something was enough for me to decide that I had a passion for it. I enjoy the excitement of making something from nothing that can benefit or help other people. I have zero ego about it. I don't care if anybody knows that I'm behind any of this stuff, aside from the shit that I have to put myself out there to promote. But the stuff that I'm doing behind the scenes, the stuff that no one knows about, I could give a shit that no one knows I'm behind it. I just want to, I'm inspired by the chance to put stuff out there that other people can benefit from and utilize and make their lives easier with. I mean, that's the goal. And I think I don't know, I got bit by that bug and I just never wanted to stop, I guess. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer in some ways.
It is.
But look, drumming has always been something I've been doing my whole life. I don't know where that came from. And I think when I finally realized that I could take control of my own life, that I don't have to work for somebody else, and that if I wanted to be a drummer, I would have to do other things in order to make a living.
Yeah.
I very quickly decided that, you know what? Well, I need to do this myself. I'm in enough areas of work that I can definitely find problems that need solutions, and fuck it. I have enough energy to try to solve certain problems. And as long as I keep it in my wheelhouse of things that I have experience with or things that I'm familiar with, I can do it. And that's like how I ended up doing this whole travel management app thing. Was really just, I don't have experience with sports directly, but I have experience with travel. I have experience with using other travel apps that are tailored to music. And I have experience in developing applications and software from ground zero. So when I combined those abilities, it does make sense for me to be involved with it because it's all things I have experience with. And I'm not just starting fresh, even though the business and the landscape is new. But the core things that I'm working on are things that I've done a lot of times before. And it's the same thing when I started Get Good Drums with Nolly, my very good friend, previous bass player from Periphery. I had experience recording drums. I had experience getting the right good drum sounds. Nolly was an amazing producer. He spent so much time practicing his chops in the studio, and I had the know-how of starting a business from nothing and building it up. And we found other great partners in our really three other partners in the business that covered their areas, that do cover their areas, so that together it's like we all have our expertise, we all have our experience, and we just combine it to make something. So I think I just started with one thing, realized it was awesome, and then wanted to do more. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the long way around that question.
No, that makes perfect sense. And what I loved is how you segued it into like towards the ending of your answer is I think a lot of people, when they've never done anything business like, and just to let you know a little bit more of like what I've done. I actually had I had a startup too, just a couple years ago, where I did everything that you did. I dove in, wrote a business plan, marketing plans, went out and get investment, all that stuff. Like I did it all. And where I think, and I'm going to be honest with you, where I went wrong, even though that idea was fine and, we ended up selling it towards the end, is I actually ended up diving in all the way. Like I started listening to like Gary Vee and all these bunch of entrepreneurs, me being a drummer, transitioned into more like the business lifestyle. And I really dove in. Like, I mean, like every day I was working just hours and hours and hours nonstop on this idea. But what I didn't do well is I didn't necessarily let enough people help me with the process. Like we had a team, we had all that, but I was very much in love with the vision and I was so picky with it. And I'm being honest. I was so picky with it that it was very difficult for me to dictate and let go of certain aspects. And I ended up being overworked myself. Granted, I feel like I've learned that lesson from this point, but it was difficult for me coming from, the artistic environment, transitioning to a business and having a really good idea and having all these people believe in it. And then being willing to let go of chunks of it that other people can handle was very difficult for me. And what I'm curious about is, do you feel like maybe you went through that, or was it easy for you to sort of like, all right, here's my vision. I have this team, everyone take your chunk and do your thing. And I'm just going to do my thing. Was that easy for you to handle? Or did you maybe sort of have what I had a little bit and have a difficulty sort of dictating and letting other people help you?
No, that's a great question. Honestly, I have to attribute my willingness to involve other people to always being in bands and always working with other people in that kind of setting. Being in bands, everybody does have their strength. Everybody does have something to contribute to the business, to the music. And I always enjoyed bouncing my ideas off other people. I always enjoy when someone else comes up with a great idea that I can say, fuck yeah, let's implement that into something, or let's do something. Like I said, I have no ego about any of that stuff. And I'm very open to letting others that I trust, take the reins by all means. So I've never really had a big issue with letting go of that. And again, it's because I'm just so used to that dynamic that you have in a band where you have to communicate and you have to let other people, let their strengths shine through. And it's like playing music, it's like you don't step on other people's toes. You let them do what they're doing when they're supposed to do it. You stay in your lane. And if everybody stays in their lane, then there's no traffic.
True.
And that's it. And I just realized I can't do it all alone. Just like I couldn't make my own album because I don't play other instruments. I couldn't start any one of these businesses completely by myself and have them be successful. I would need other people to kind of help support me. And I like the opportunity to help support them where I have strengths and they have weaknesses. And I've always enjoyed that, but I get it. I understand being in love with an idea so much that it's very hard to let go of something, especially if someone doesn't completely understand your vision.
Yeah.
And you either have to do a better job of explaining it to them and trying to get them to understand, or maybe they're not the right person for you. But I went through things with Band Happy where we started working with certain investors and they wanted to really, really voice their opinions. And it was a really trying time because they did not understand what I was going for. They didn't get the vision. They didn't know the market as well. And in hindsight, that taught me a lesson, which was, one, if you can do without outside investment, do without it. Don't ever take outside investment unless you absolutely have to. But if you are going to take outside investment, make sure you do it from people that are passionate about the same things as you are, that understand the landscape, and that truly can evangelize on your behalf. Because if not, then they're simply going to be in it for their money and their return on their investment. And that's all they're going to care about. And that's not a good position to be in. So I learned a pretty hard lesson through that process.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. I think it's hard because when you're dealing with other people's money, you're essentially promising that you're going to give them a certain percentage and that they're going to make more money. That's the only reason why anyone would even really invest in an idea. And I love talking about just the business side of things because I think as musicians, we're sort of starting in this new era that we're living in. We are sort of transitioning into everyone having to be a little bit more entrepreneurial because of social media and just the internet and just things that are happening. And so I'm really happy that you and I have some sort of a connection and understanding what it actually takes to create a startup from the ground up. But what really piqued my curiosity, okay, with your latest venture is with this punk rock MBA project that you're really working on. We were talking a little bit about it before the show, and it really piqued my interest because a lot of these skills, let's call them skills that I learned along the way, having my own startup and understanding through that. There's so many little skills that come in handy when you're trying to start a business or trying to grow something. And with Punk Rock MBA, I think what you guys are trying to do is essentially teach those skills to every musician to ensure that they basically grow their career. So what I'm curious about is, what are some of the skills? And obviously this is a broad question. There's so many, but what are some of the key skills that you feel that every musician needs to have, or at least start learning right now, in order to sort of grow their business? It doesn't matter if they want to have a startup, but at least to grow their career and become more profitable, like you said, in order to, basically break away from having to, be having shitty jobs or whatever, and be able to make a living doing what they want to do.
Sure. It's a great question. So real quick, as a preface to that, and I'm sure your audience is comprised mostly of, I would imagine, drummers and musicians, but the Punk Rock MBA and our course, Sell It Without Selling Out, is not exclusive to musicians by any means. This is for anyone with a creative talent, passion, job that's looking to work for themselves. So whether you're a photographer, graphic designer, videographer, illustrator, we could go on and on, a musician, whatever. The skills that you would need to develop will apply to all of those different areas of work, no matter what you do. And I say that because anybody listening, even if it's not for you, if you know somebody who would be interested in that, then this might be beneficial. But I think first and foremost, it's really important for people to make sure that they know who they are and that they're being themselves. There's a million copycats out there, and something that people overlook is that in order to be unique, in order to stand out from the crowd, all you really have to do is be yourself. You have to focus on what you love to do, focus on your own talents. And when you combine talent with the passion for something and you do it your own way, then you really are, as we at the Punk Rock MBA would call it, you're making a creative fingerprint for yourself that no one else is going to have. So that's the key at first, is to develop the confidence to look yourself in the mirror and say, what I do and what I love is what's going to separate me from the crowd. And then you have to position yourself. And then I think it's important to understand, how to set a goal correctly, understanding what a really good goal entails, understanding what you then do to reach that goal, and then what you do along the way while you're working to reach that goal. So we've developed a whole framework for that process of setting a goal, finding your strategy, and implementing your tactics. And it's a 3-step thing. So beyond that, we talk about how to build out a portfolio, and what should be in your portfolio. And I think that's an area where people kind of struggle with understanding what that means. For a band or for a musician, that could just mean, like, if you're a drummer, your drum playthroughs, which ones are your favorites, which ones are the most professional, which ones are your best. Use those. If you're looking for gigs to get out on the road or go on tour or whatever it is, you can develop a portfolio in your own home as long as you're willing to put yourself out there and be yourself. If you are a graphic designer, your portfolio are going to be the websites you develop or design, or the products you design, or the merchandise you design. So just learning how to curate your own portfolio, create your own website, understand why and how you would use social media, why you should advertise maybe out there on social media, where you should advertise, all that stuff. I mean, we cover all that. I think the biggest thing, though, that we really try to cover that is important for creatives to understand is the importance of networking, the importance of sales, and getting past this mentality that sales is a dirty word and that networking is a bad thing. Because a lot of creative people tend to be more introverted. Now, that doesn't mean they're bad with other people or they don't like communicating with other people. I think my understanding of most introverted people is that they just don't want to have pointless conversation with people. And if the choice is to either be alone or have pointless conversation, they would choose to be alone. So that's fine. But you have to get past the point of thinking that getting out there and networking is not going to be something that is for you. Because honestly, no matter what it is you do, no matter what your profession, if you're creative in any way and you want to work for yourself, you're going to have to let people know about it. And sales could be defined in that you're promoting yourself and selling your products to a massive audience, or you're simply going in and you're pitching one person. Either way, you're going to need to develop skills in order to do that. So what we really try to break down in this course and through our messaging is how to do that effectively, with as many steps that we can provide so that there's no blurred lines or nothing's mystified. Like, we're trying to demystify those steps and make them as easy as possible for people that maybe aren't as good or as naturally what's what I'm looking for, innately good at sales or networking. We show you how to do it and give you the tools to find people, to find your clients, to talk to your clients, to sell your clients, and then to hopefully maintain a really good relationship with those clients or your customers for an ongoing basis. So I know it's a lot, and I covered a lot there, but that's really what we try to cover in the course. And those are the overarching topics as a whole that we're looking to address via the Punk Rock MBA.
Absolutely. No, I think you covered a really good amount. And you know what? The cool thing about networking and sales is that I feel like mainstream media and just, society in general has painted salespeople and just the idea of networking a certain way. And when you're introverted or when you're a creative person and you haven't necessarily experienced that world firsthand, it's very easy to, basically say, oh, sales, you're going to be this guy like a telemarketer on the phone all the time. And even though there's a lot of the similar skills, the beauty of today, in my opinion, is that you can sort of mold everything to who you are, really. And that goes back to what you were saying, is understanding who you are, what you want, and where you want your project to go. And I think it's very easy for a lot of people to just sort of, think about where they want to be and then just compare it to, oh, well, then if I have to be this annoying person all the time, I don't want to do that. But the truth is, you can mold that to who you are and basically make that work for you. And it's just understanding how to do it, how to reach out to people, how to really just follow up, how to make sure that you're always, saying the right things and not wasting people's times. But like you said, it's about understanding, do you want to sell to the masses, maybe to a very specific niche market? But the idea is, if you want to be independent, if you want to reach a certain goal, identify that goal and mold yourself to sort of be able to sell within your own means and who you are as a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And look, I mean, if that's not your strength and you truly can't see yourself doing that, then do what I was saying. Find a partner who can help you with that side of it.
Yeah.
There's always people that are going to care about what you're doing, especially if it's a big picture idea that can help a lot of people or provide a service or a product that is just, is something that makes sense for everybody. You can find people to help you. And look, if you want to do it yourself, which is, again, what we're pushing, as you said, find your strengths, mold to the goal, and you can do it if you're passionate about it. Look, that's the thing. It's easy to sell something. It's easy to network if you have a reason to do so that you really care about. If you are passionate about what you do and you know yourself and you know that it's good and you really just want to get it out there, then telling people about that is going to be easy and they're going to buy into it because your passion is going to shine through. It's where you're selling a bullshit product or something you don't care about that it becomes mundane and it becomes kind of sleazy and shitty and terrible. But if you're doing something that you really care about, talking about it to those who you need to talk to is an easy thing.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, since you sort of piqued my curiosity. So we all essentially have ideas, no matter who we are, no matter what we do, whether it's music or not. I think a lot of us have ideas. And as we sort of grow into believing that we can make our passions a reality, we start making steps to making that happen. Now, one of the challenges I faced early on, which luckily I had really good mentors like you that sort of helped me through it, is understanding how to refine that idea. Because obviously you and I can sit here and be like, I have a great idea for an app. Right. But obviously us not being app developers, it's going to be, even though it's a good idea, obviously it needs to be refined, in my opinion, at least. So what I'm curious about is, what would you say to someone that has an idea, is very passionate, but they start to receive criticisms across the board from different people? And where I had a challenge is discerning what the right kind of criticisms were that would be able to build up my idea. And like I said, luckily I had people that taught me and sort of guided me through it. But had I not had that, I feel like I would have been lost a little bit. So I'm curious, like maybe how you handle that, and maybe what you would tell someone that if they had an idea they felt very passionate about and they were ready to dive in, how they can sort of pick and choose the right advice that would help build up their idea as opposed to destroy their idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think you just have to know your audience. I mean, you kind of have to know who is giving you the criticism. If you have someone who's experienced in that world, someone who is knowledgeable of launching and starting a business, or has a lot of particular skills that really do pertain to what you're doing, and they have no reason to help you other than they just want to help you, then likely their input is worth considering. If it's an internet troll or someone who's jealous or someone who's just not giving you real constructive criticism, then you shouldn't take what they're saying seriously, because if they're not willing to really walk you through it and explain why and give you their background and tell you why they're knowledgeable and why they're able to give you this opinion and why it should be valued, then there's no point in letting anybody stop you in your tracks from what you're doing. And that's an epidemic right now. I recently put out a video via my socials with Finn, my partner in the Punk Rock MBA, to address this exact topic. People muster up the courage to put themselves out there, and a bunch of dickheads online decide to tear them down for no reason that really applies, with nothing constructive. But that negativity, if you're not ready for it, if your skin isn't thick enough, that can be enough to halter someone in their tracks and stop them from doing what they initially set out to do, because they feel embarrassed or they feel discouraged, and that is terrible. And it's exactly what I said in my video. But if someone's going to give you thoughtful, constructive criticism, and they have the know-how, or they see something that you don't and it makes sense to you, then absolutely take it for what it's worth. It doesn't mean that you should let other people control you like a puppet. It doesn't mean that you should always take someone's opinion and run with it. But if someone is knowledgeable enough, they're willing to have a real conversation, and they're willing to tell you why or how or what makes them say what they're saying, then at least you should consider what they're talking about before you either keep things the way they are, or you actually do make an adjustment based off their suggestions. And I got to tell you, like, in every one of my businesses, having partners is a great reason. Like that's the reason I have partners in and of itself, is because if I have an idea, I have people I trust that can tell me that's shit and you shouldn't do that, or they can say, yeah, that's really good actually, let's move ahead with this.
Yeah.
And there's been times when I've been so gung-ho about it that, like, I still argue and I end up winning. But a lot of times I trust my partners enough to where if they have something important to say, I take their word very seriously. When I started Band Happy, one of our initial investors, who took a long time to get him to invest, was somebody with a lot of entrepreneurial experience, had been a part of a company that went public, and really knew every in and out of the tech world and so on and so forth. And, he was willing to sit down and poke holes and tell us to fix this and fix that and come back. And it was all stuff that made sense. It was very clear. Yeah. Nothing was just, he wasn't sending us down a rabbit hole or on a wild goose chase just to do it. He was definitely seeing if we would take his advice and if we would work hard to make the changes, but it was all stuff that we couldn't argue with. So hopefully everything I just said there, the combination of that makes sense to the listeners in terms of who they should listen to and who they should avoid, and just stay the course.
No, that makes perfect sense. I think you definitely hit it right on the mark, especially with that partner you were talking about who understands the tech world, as a drummer. And I think like you said, I feel like you've definitely experienced this in the past. You're always going to receive criticism no matter what you do, no matter where you release your stuff, whether social media, whatever it is that you're going to do, you're always going to receive criticism. But if it makes sense, if it's something that you can't argue against, if someone does take the time to actually sit there and see your point and be like, hey, this is my experience, this is what I've learned, and it's very honest and clear that they're not trying to destroy you just for just destroying sake. They're very much just honestly giving you opinion. I think that's a very good way to be able to find good advice that someone is willing to give you. And I guess another question I have just real quick is, I think we've answered this question just with a lot of the answers that you gave. But for someone that maybe has never done it before, how does one go about finding their first partner? So let's say I have a good idea and I know someone that is good at finances. You know what I mean? Like, so how would someone like that has never done it before and wanting to start would go about to reaching out to someone and potentially making them a partner in their idea?
I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but a lot of it comes down to just being involved with my network and being aware and paying attention to what other people that I'm close to or within arm's reach of are doing. So, it's funny when it comes to Band Happy, the very first partner who ended up being my full-time partner was someone who ended up being the CFO of the company. He was a CPA, he was an accountant, and he was my accountant at the time. I went to him because of a combination of things. I knew he was a musician. I knew he worked with musicians. He was younger. He was going to be passionate about what I was doing. And if he liked it, I knew that he had skills that I absolutely did not have that he could contribute to it. So I remember I went into his office. I sat down. I said, this is what Band Happy is. This is what I want to do. I'm looking for help in the finance area. And if you'd be interested, I'd love to figure something out. And he was like, I'm blown away. This is awesome. I'll help you. And then he ended up being my 50-50 partner in the whole business.
Nice.
When it came to the punk rock MBA, I mean, me and Finn have been working together on other projects for years. Finn is our director of marketing for Get Good Drums. Prior to that, he and I worked together when he was working at this company called Creative Live. He brought me on board to teach my first online course via Creative Live. He was running their music and audio channel. I had Band Happy. We had similar kind of interests. We were doing similar things, so we would bounce ideas off each other. We just became friends. And that led to us now working together hand in hand on this new business. And it's the same with everybody else that I work with. I haven't found anyone to work with that's been a total stranger. It's all been based off of who's in my immediate network. If not in my immediate network, who is very close to that immediate network, who comes with a good recommendation. So if you need somebody specific and you don't know anybody, talk to your friends, talk to other people around you who are in other worlds and find out who they know and if they trust these people. And if they can make an introduction for you and be a middleman for you to connect with somebody that could help you, then that's what you should do. But you have to be willing to share what you're doing with those around you so they can understand it and then potentially recommend other people that can help you. And that's either I knew them directly and went to them directly and chose to work with these people because of understanding their abilities and their strengths, or I didn't know somebody, but I knew somebody else who knew somebody, and I went to them and I said, hey, here's what I'm doing. Can you make a recommendation of somebody in your network that I don't know? And that's it. It's as simple as that.
Dude, that is fantastic. I love how you explain that, just because I think it's straight to the point and I think it's very true. I think when you're trying to figure out how to do something specific or have a massive project like that, I'm always surprised by who I know. You know what I mean? Like, my network is extensive, but when you start to ask around and have that bravery of being able to ask people who's willing to help you, I'm always blown away by how many people come forward with their knowledge and being able to help me. And I think you explained it really well. And one last point I wanted to touch from what you said is being willing to share your idea. And I had another good friend of mine on the show just a couple months ago, Elmo Lovano from Jamcard. And Elmo. Yeah. Elmo's a really cool guy, very knowledgeable dude. And, he essentially told me, with Gary V one time, Gary told him, and this is something he lives by and something that I've learned along the way too, is that, there's this common misconception of keeping your ideas to yourself because someone might steal it. Someone might grab your idea, run with it, and make it themselves. But without getting too detailed into it, essentially his Elmo's philosophy to me was essentially you have to be willing to share your idea and be very proud of it and be very open with it, because if you're afraid that someone is going to steal it, chances are that you're not pursuing it to its full potential. And it takes a lot for someone to actually want to do your idea. They have to basically shift their whole resources to try and do everything that you dictated to them. But if you're being true to your idea and pursuing it, then you have nothing to fear in basically sharing what you're trying to do with your potential partners or friends. And in that way, when you're sharing your idea, people can sort of give you that feedback that you might need to perfect it and make it a bigger idea. So I'm just curious to see like if maybe you agree with that concept.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Look, when you factor in the amount of work it takes to execute on one idea, it's very rare that somebody else, unless they have the perfect skill set and they can do it faster and better, and they have a bigger budget than you, no one's going to take your idea. You know,
Yep.
Especially if you are blazing the trail with it, you're going to be too far ahead for anyone to catch up. And it's just, you have to put it out there. And I agree with Elmo 100%. You know, it's funny. Elmo and I have had many conversations simply as two drummers that are friends, that are both entrepreneurs, just to say, hey, here's what I'm working on. Cool. Here's what I'm working on. And we share completely like everything we're doing. And not once have we ever, I don't think he's ever felt this way. I definitely haven't. We've never felt threatened by each other. We've never coveted anything and been unwilling to share. And it's because it's like there should be a mutual respect in business, especially with your friends. You know, they do their thing. You offer help where you can, vice versa. But that is the truth. It's like no one's going to take your idea. And if they do, they're going to have to do it publicly as well. And you're going to have a track record, hopefully, of where it came from first. And you're good, you know? And
Yep.
It's just, people worry too much about that. And I think, again, just to summarize my point, everybody's got to, or if someone's going to do that, they got to put in double or triple or quadruple the work that you've already done just to catch up to you. And they don't know what your real plans are at the end of the day. They don't know what you're already working on. And in that time that they're trying to build up, you're already moving forward. So in the worst case scenario that they do, but you're still working hard, you're always still going to be steps ahead. And in the situation where you're sharing something and you're worried about it, you shouldn't be, because most people are not going to have the wherewithal or the interest to change their whole lives in order to take on your endeavor. They're just not.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I feel very inspired, and I'm reminiscing a lot of those moments where I was really heavily involved in the startup. And I love all those lessons that I learned in those years ago. It made me into a much better person, much better networker, and just everything all around. And I definitely love that I got a chance to speak to you about the projects that you're doing, especially with Punk Rock MBA, which I personally feel like it's going to help a lot of creative people to basically push their career forward and get to that next level, which is really my whole goal with this whole podcast series and this whole just interview series. Is I really want to make sure that I show people how everyone does their thing, but what makes them unique and what makes them individuals. Because like you said at the beginning, at the end of the day, everyone is just another human being. The reason why they're at where they're at is because they chose to believe that they could do it and they took steps to get there. That's very, very the simplest way I can put it. And I think that Punk Rock MBA is essentially going to help other people do the same thing. So if someone wants to find that, if someone wants to maybe even get in touch with you, how does someone go about, you know, signing up or doing that whole thing for Punk Rock MBA?
So if they're interested in the course that we released, all they have to do is go to sellitwithoutsellingout.com, and you can find out everything you need to. You can purchase the course there. Like I said, we're taking pre-orders right now, but once you actually purchase it, you do get access to everything we have. So it's kind of like a mock pre-order in a way, but we're not releasing all of the horses from the barn yet. We still are working on a couple things. But that being said, it is available for pre-order. Again, sellitwithoutsellingout.com, or you can check out more about what we're doing and get some free education at thepunkrockmba.com. We have a lot of free content there that you can check out before you decide to dive in and make the purchase. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. And then if there are producers that are listening that are looking for good drum software for their own compositions, check out getgooddrums.com. And you can learn more about that. So here's my shameless self-promotion. That's what I'm doing right there.
Shameless self-promotion is welcomed here, my friend. And to basically tie all things, one of the things I always like to do at the end is just basically, even though you've said everything that I've wanted you to say, and I think a lot of people are going to be inspired to go and pursue their goals after this. If there was someone sitting right here, basically, inspired to go after their dream, maybe even start a startup or just, push their career forward, what would be the one thing that you would suggest for them to do right now, just to continue pursuing their goal? Maybe just summarize, or just something quick that they could potentially do to help them push their career forward today or sometime this week.
Just make sure that you have a very clear vision and a very clear goal that is written down somewhere that you can always reference. And your goal should be very specific. It should be quantified in some way, and it should have a deadline. And if you can set a goal and then stick to that, you'll likely be able to find your way. But if you are kind of just shooting in the dark aimlessly or just throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks, it's a much lesser chance. You got to be organized with this stuff. So if you do have an idea that you believe in, if you really want to take it a step further and make something out of it, look yourself in the mirror, figure out what your strengths are, figure out what you're passionate about, set the right goal for yourself, and just hold yourself accountable every day. Because the more work you do from day to day, it may seem tedious. It may seem like not a lot is getting done. But if you put one foot in front of the other every single day, in a month's time, in 3 months' time, in a year, you'll look back and it's amazing at what you've accomplished, and you would never even know it from day to day.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Matt. I know that I definitely did. And as I say at the end of every episode, I'm always learning. And I say that because I hope that you guys are learning too. One thing I took away from this episode to remind myself is to triple down on what you're good at. It's so easy to sit there and focus on all the millions of things that you don't know how to do. But the reality is the most successful people on the planet have learned how to focus on what they are good at, on what they're naturally gifted in, on what drives them. Because the reality is all of us, we all have millions of things that we can't do, or at least can't do well, but we definitely have a handful of things that drive us, that ignite that fire, that passion that we all have inside. And that's the one thing that Matt reminded me today is no matter what project you're doing, whether it's music, whether you are trying to start a business or a startup, focus on what you're good at. And if you can, bring on people to help you with the things that you're not. So if you enjoyed this interview, if you enjoyed some of my previous episodes, press that subscribe button because I've got lots of great interviews coming your way.